I really enjoyed these pages. I think these were my top 3 stories of all the ones we've read so far, for sure. I kind of wanted just to open the conversation with the idea of losing things, not only losing tangible things, but people and relationships. That's like one of the big things that I pulled from these stories. For example, in the first story, Lost Never Had, like she opens with the mom constantly kind of having a habit of losing tangible things, like her journal or her Bible or her keys or her wallet. And then the story kind of like develops into her lost parent. So I kind of got to thinking, like, sure, I can lose my car keys, but I was thinking about this very deeply, and I'm wondering what you ladies, I'm very excited to kind of hear what everyone has to say. Is it possible to lose something that you've never had? Like an absentee father, or an absent mother, or a mother who died during birth. I was thinking about this a lot, like in terms of loss and in terms of losing things. And that thing kind of also shows up, in the second story, Speakers and Headphones, where she loses her friend, never to see her again. And with that kind of loses like a part of herself in a sense, or at least a part of maybe her growth and the ability to create other relationships outside of the grade school one that she lost. I guess what I really wanted to say was, to me in these pages, and all 3 stories actually, even in the third one, the mom loses kind of everything as far as money is concerned and a relationship is concerned. But I was thinking, like, in those terms, in the terms of loss, I kind of just want to kick off the conversation and kind of hear some of your thoughts on, I guess if you agree with me, in the sense that, can you lose something that you've never had, that you've never really even known, like in the first story? And then in the second story, how difficult is it to come back after you've lost someone or something that you did know very well, something that you did love even? And kind of the idea that you can never go home again, or you can never come back after a certain loss. And I don't know, I'm kind of rambling, but I was really curious to just hear some of your thoughts on that. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes. You made sense.
Yes.
Hey, Tasha. Hold up for the fudge sickle.
Homemade ice pops. The best thing ever.
We know how Tasha has been spending her quarantine time.
So I think, yeah, you can lose something you've never had, but I think that applies to certain things. So I would suggest, when it comes to certain things that are expected in society, like a mother or a father, you can have enough of an experience in life of what to expect, of what to wish, of what to desire, to have like this sense of absence that sees as loss. I think I have an older half sister who was not raised with me, so she never knew our dad, and our father just passed away quite suddenly this month. And in talking to her, she has a very clear sense of what a father means, right? And yet she never really experienced our father. So I feel like there's certain things in society that I don't want to say are like mutually agreed upon, but there's certain sort of communal senses of, particularly when it comes to people and figures and relationships. Or we could talk about this for like the Tuesday night book club, reading All About Love a couple months ago. Like a lot of us kind of agree, maybe none of us have actually experienced love, but we know the loss of love. You know?
Yes.
So I'll just throw that out there as maybe something to reflect upon towards your first question.
Maybe not even the loss of love, maybe the absence of love. Maybe that's what she's actually kind of losing in a sense, is the absence of something.
But
For
maybe,
example,
okay.
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to suggest, though, there's like, you know, I'm not a psychologist, but I feel like many of us have desire. Well, I don't want to say many of us. Everyone has desire. And I think even if you never experience the thing that you desire, it registers not necessarily as an absence, but as something that you lost. Like, I didn't win a father in the lottery of life. I didn't win a romantic relationship until I was X age. And it doesn't necessarily register as absent. It registers as like, there's a hole that feels like a loss, not necessarily an absence. In part because maybe like, I don't know, I'll stop. I'll let other people jump in.
For example, what I was thinking of with the second story, so that's the first story that we're kind of talking about, right? That kind of absence of a father figure that you never had, that loss. Is that a loss, or is it just something you hadn't experienced, right? And the second story, I feel it's a bit more clean cut for me. I felt like what was lost was her innocence, in a sense, you know? And she never really came back from the blow that her psyche took from when the day she kind of realized that she had lost her innocence, when she seen her friend and her friend's mom being dragged out by the police for, you know, a domestic dispute, right? So it's like that idea of loss, which is innocence necessarily a tangible thing? I don't think so, but it is. I think it's something that we all can maybe pinpoint one or maybe even several times in our life where we can like pinpoint, like, that's when I lost my innocence. That's when I found out about racism, or that's when I found out about X, Y, and Z, right? So, and in the third story, I'm a bit more perplexed about what was lost there. That maybe to me was more of like, I don't know, choose your decisions wisely, or you could end up like having everything and then losing it at the same time. I don't know. I just want to hear you ladies and Ron kind of talk about your thoughts on these pages.
I think in the last story, the loss was the wife, the mother, thinking that she married into this security blanket, and you know, it was taken away from her. And so that was a great loss that she never was able to come back to. She married someone who obviously she thought promised her X, Y, and Z, and all she got was the house, which she couldn't keep.
There also seemed to be a loss for the daughter also in that third story, in the sense that she went in to meet her mother with so much hope and some, you know, dreams about getting married, and the mother kind of dashes all of that and kind of injects reality into what is normally this really hyper romantic situation where you are almost void of reality. You know, when you get engaged, I'm assuming when you get engaged and get married, or at least that process towards getting that period towards getting married, where everything is just really ideal. And then all of a sudden mom is like, you gotta go earn some money, or at least have the ability to earn your own money separate from your husband, which almost contradicts marriage. That, you know, that on the one hand you are going into something to form a new union, but your mom is telling you stay financially single, you know, which is important.
I don't know, was that so much of a loss, or did the mother steal her joy? Something was stolen from her.
Yeah, it could be, yeah.
Or did she gain something? I'm coming full circle here. Did she gain a lesson, right? The daughter, who was very proud of the diamond ring, right? And expected her mom to be proud of her. And when she wasn't, maybe that wasn't a loss. Maybe it was a gain. Kind of that knowledge that she gave her. Have your own money, have your own funds. Don't do it like I did it.
But I think she lost that. Jess, are you talking? Because you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. I think that that is definitely an important lesson to learn. But at the same time, I feel like the last page when she said, I didn't need pledges because I already observed who he was and still is. She took time to see how he treated other people, not just her. So she's telling her mom, like, maybe the reasons that you decided to marry this man, I'm deciding to marry this man for different reasons. I know who he is. Like, I didn't listen to promises, and I didn't, him telling me that he's gonna do all these things or, false promises. I observed who he is, and that's what I fell for, and that's more important. I think that statement had me like, yeah, you go, girl. Like, you know what you're getting yourself into. The mom sounded like she didn't. So that was her reality. That isn't necessarily going to be the daughter's reality. So she definitely should make her own money and not become dependent on the man. But at the same time, it sounded like they had two totally different types of men.
That's why more of a stolen item. The joy was purposefully stolen because there's a way to impart advice, and the advice was good advice, but I just didn't feel it was being given in the spirit of advice. I felt that it was being given like, yeah, you think that as a way to knock her down a peg, not, well, that's really nice, but you should really remember to keep your own money, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, she's scarred. She's scarred.
And why didn't she have, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jess.
Oh, no, that was it. I was done. She's projecting that, her issues, her being scarred from her relationship onto her daughter.
And why didn't she have this conversation early on? Like, the daughters come home, or the daughter comes home with a wedding ring, and now she decides to have this conversation, which is basically, women empowerment. So, like, how was she raising her daughters up until that point?
Good question.
That makes sense. It was like, yeah, it was like kind of sad. Like, the daughter was so excited, and she, she even said, I was trying to find it in the book. And like the page, like she comes in like, I did good, kind of like she said to her mom. Like she expected, that, like you said, in terms of raising them, she had to raise them in a way like get married or find a man to either take care of you. It looks like she expected a different reaction from her mom. Not, But I like how the title came back around, like, when she even told her mom, like, you don't even have to pay for it. And her mother said, I'm always paying. Which was an interesting line. So.
Well, it also feels like there's something that's being left out. Like she says specifically, your father punched your mother often, your older sisters told you. You tried to remember those times, but couldn't, maybe wouldn't. Like, there may be something there to, no matter what the mother said to the daughter and how she raised her, the daughter, for whatever reason, wasn't able to access and see just how hard it was for her mother. And I'm really struck by the idea that, like, as she's coming and saying, I've got this brand new life, I did it, here's my ring. Her mom's like, all I have is this house. And she starts calling it her tomb, right? I don't know when the father died. I don't remember if that was actually explicit, but like, if all you have is this home that feels like your final resting place, right? Like, there's a big mismatch between where the two of them are in life. for sure.
And she is mad at the father because the father, I believe, is cheating on her, and I guess leaves the bulk of his money to the girlfriend. So that's how we roll.
Speaking of fuck boys, are we talk about the dad in the first story?
Oh my God, honey, I'm so glad you brought that up.
Oh, I was like, listen, I said that's the only thing I really want to talk about is that he is such a dick. Like just awful, just selfish, he had he didn't care about her at all. He was just like, it was just for him, for his, what was that? Absolvation? Give me the word, y'all. Absolvement.
Absolution.
Thank you. I was there.
You were close. I got it. I knew what you were talking about.
It was for that. Like, I was like, this man is such a dick. And even, when that email, he's like, oh yeah, well, like if you want to come back to me, so you get, no, I don't want to come back. I don't want to meet your wife. I don't care who she is. Oh, he's just such a fuckboy. I'm sorry. I'm glad her mom was like, yes, thank you, Jesus, for taking him out of my life. I was like, yes, girl, thank you. She must have died in peace. But I felt bad for the daughter because now I feel like, does this now mean that the daughter becomes the mom? Oh, I'm sorry, honey. Oh, I'm sorry. I know Auntie's cursing way too much. I'm sorry. She was like, I don't even know words, but I know this is terrible. So I feel like,
I'm glad you brought that up, and I want to hear you talk more about it. What I was thinking was that the father kind of cloaking his absence, or not even cloaking his like resurgence in some sort of Christ-like metaphor, and how it more felt that I want to say he said something so crazy like, you needed me, or I finally came back to you, or something like, when they were at the dinner table, the Lord told him that he needed her. Everything about it was just so inappropriate, especially the part that broke my heart wasn't really that she never knew her father, but that he made it very, very clear that the only reason he was there was because his wife, pushed him to be there.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, how dare you?
And he tried to call it penance.
He don't even know that the mom is dead. How about that? He never did. He know?
He didn't even acknowledge it.
He never acknowledged it. Like, she never existed.
Yeah.
I'm like, bro. Oh, that was. I felt so bad for her, and I was like,
he didn't apologize. He's just. Yeah, that was so arrogant.
Yes.
But I loved her response. I loved her prayer. Like, she was more calm, and she's so better than I would have been, and I'm proud of her.
Girl, I would have launched that journal to that door. that it would have been like a chancleta. You know how chancleta never misses. Never misses. Oh.
But
no. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Rach.
No, Ron, no.
But what did this also say about religion in society?
Mm-hmm.
That he came back, all he's talking about is making that connection because basically God has, or his wife, God, has sort of dictated that she just be happy, the daughter, be happy that he is back in her life. And all he wants to do is say a prayer and move on. And the daughter is like, and the daughter's having none of it. And it just, I mean, it's definitely real, because you see and hear that all the time where people, it's just religion. It's not about your personal feelings or who you are as an individual. It is what scripture says. And it's just so crazy, but I love how she handled it. She, the daughter, because I thought for a little while she was going to give in to that craziness, you know, but she doesn't. So I was really happy that she kind of like stays firm in her anger.
Yeah.
And some people deserve anger, you know, they don't deserve, you have to earn forgiveness, and he didn't earn it, so.
Yeah, Ron, if I might, I felt like he felt like he wasn't responsible.
Right. It was God. It was ordained.
Yeah, but I mean, it's almost as if he used his religion to justify his absence and his neglect.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was disgusting to me.
Yeah.
Well, there also was previously, though, remember they went to church regularly, and then that pastor hit on her mother, and her mother never found out what her mother believed until later when she was able to read the journal.
Right.
About what her mother thought. But like for her, she says something to the effect of like, I never viewed the pastor as my shepherd. I just sat and listened to his sermon.
Yeah, he's just a man.
Yeah, that's not my direct phone line to God.
Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't even like come near to like foreshadowing what's going to happen with her dad and what he's going to do. But at least there's like some hint that like she doesn't buy into this patriarchal masculinist like religious stuff, and in fact like watched her mom like almost get sexually abused by someone from the church using that stuff.
Yes.
And I was just gonna say that too, like Marta was saying, like the dad was a fuckboy, and the reality is like sometimes dads are that, you know what I mean, like he's just a man, you know what I mean, like he's just like we hold people up, whether it's a pastor or a father or the absence of a father or what you're supposed to have, and it's like people are just people, you know, like when it's all, you know, with flaws, and he was just really nasty, and just he didn't really seem like he thought he was responsible for his daughter. Like he kind of told her like he didn't want her, you know, like it was like before I met your mother I could see ahead. I made a mistake. We made you, and it made things blurry. I could no longer see my future because I couldn't see past you and your mother. I wasn't ready. It was all too much. I just think that was like the nastiest thing to say. I was like, I can't believe that he said that to her. You know,
he literally called her a mistake.
Yeah, that was really hurtful.
I was like, how? Yeah. Oh, this part, it was just painful.
This was
so painful.
Especially, I guess, for me, even if he would have kept that same verbiage, right? But the thing that killed me wasn't the fact that he basically, I think she asked him, like, why did you leave? Or did a part of you die when I was born? And I think his response was like, I lost my vision or something like that. But I think the most like damaging thing that he said was when he was explaining why he was back. And I think he said verbatim, like, I need to make sure you are saved. Like, he didn't ask her, even he asked her what she did for school and what she did for work, and she just dead lied. And he didn't even attempt to like get to the bottom of it or anything. Like, he really kind of just had this agenda. It's like his wife sent him to the grocery store for potatoes. You know, it's like it was no emotional connection at all. And that really tripped me out. And at first I was thinking, there's no way that this that this would actually happen, until I kind of got to the end where he sent her that second email, and it was still kind of the same language, like, oh, if you want to meet my wife, come by, otherwise don't ever call me again.
And then he's like, I will only send you the address. Keep your address. Exactly. I don't want your address.
Keep your address.
Bump that address.
He didn't even respond about the bill. Like, you owe me my $50 for the meal. He didn't even respond to that part.
But can we talk about where they dined? Because where are you going to get lobster for $49.50? Well, that was half of it, right?
I think it was like in the 80s, though. I feel like
it was like a lobster salad, wasn't it? Or something?
Oh, was it?
I don't
So it
know.
might have been a piece of a claw.
I can't stand you. I can't stand Martha. I can't.
Why?
Like I said, I didn't get a chance to read it, but I do have a question around this idea of loss and this father coming back into this space. So to tell your child that you lost, because of the child, you lost your vision. So it makes me think about how easily he was able to reclaim that vision by stepping away. So.
Oh, wait, no, Tasha, not to cut you off. I'm so sorry. But he was supposed to be a doctor. Like, he left him to become a doctor, and then he didn't become a doctor. And he didn't. And then she says that to him. She's like, you're not a doctor? He's like, no, I'm a pharmacist. So, right, like that whole thing, that was all, again, just,
Yep.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Tasha, no.
So even without his first wife, he still doesn't fulfill his dreams.
But then, yeah. So then it's like a question of like, what parts do you settle and reimagine? You know what I mean? Like, okay, the child came into place. You could have reimagined. Y'all could have made out a schedule or something like that. But then for you to leave to aspire for this one thing and then not even obtain it, that means there was still some renegotiation somewhere that could have possibly happened in the first relationship. It's just really interesting that how you lost something, you lost your vision, and then you skirt out to reclaim it.
Well, it's the kind of the idea that he basically, negotiated with himself if it was in his best interest to take care of his family. And he decided that it wasn't. By the way, Tasha, he got married and had another kid.
And they're mad young. He's like 30. The mother dies at 39. So this hit home. It just hit home. I was like, she died from stress. Jesus. That's because everyone in her life just did her dirty. So she died from a heartache. I really do think the mom died from a heartache. Like, so yeah, they were mad young. So, I mean, 37, I'm assuming he's like 38, 39. He's prime fuckboy age.
Is that prime fuckboy age? I thought like 20 was.
But
no, they were 20 when they had infamia.
Becoming many ages.
They were 20 years old.
They do.
I didn't know. I
They
thought
were 22.
Fuckboys come in many ages.
They do. Mm-hmm.
Someone tweet that after this session.
Do you hear that?
If I ever heard one.
But is it fair to call him a fuck? I hate saying that term, fuck boy. But is it fair to call him?
Ron, you about to go to the breakout room. You about to go to the breakout room, Ron. Yes. Go ahead, Ron. I want to hear this. Come on.
No, not to say that he didn't do her wrong, but he did her wrong just based on his own religious beliefs. Like, would you still put fuck boys in the religious people who have religious dogma? Would you also put them in the fuck boy category?
Oh yeah.
Yes, that's the prime fuck boy. Yes. He's using Jesus. He's like, Jesus made me do it.
Yes. Or Allah.
That would be called a pious fuckboy. Okay, like listen here. We are equal opportunity. We are an equal opportunity fuckboy agency where we call them all out. Okay, all religions, genders, orientations, fuckboyish. That's it. If that's what you do, it's what you do. Okay, that just be pious. And you know what? I'm gonna talk about that religion thing a little bit later.
Can I ask a quick question though? Was he religious in the beginning though?
That's what I was just about to say.
Or was this one of those like, let's just even assume good intentions. Too young, not able to handle it. I'm not excusing. I'm not saying that he's not irresponsible. I'm not saying that he shouldn't have done better. But then later finds Jesus and then can use that to forgive his own self because we're all God or whatever. Like I'm not certain that the religious thing follows all the way through. or if it's not something that maybe even picked up when he got with the new wife or something.
No, I think
They met.
beginning that he stopped paying his tithes to the church when they got married, when she got pregnant and they got married, that they had been
Yes.
going to church and then he stopped.
Yes. So he used that too because he lost his vision to the plate too.
Right.
So you saying he owed Jesus some back money? What are you saying?
He owed Jesus child support or whatever support.
But they were religious from the very
Yeah.
beginning. He quote unquote lost his religion, but
I did think of that too, though, Camila, where I was like, well, he was very young. He was 22. But then it also it speaks to like society and kind of the gender roles, because the mom didn't have that same option. You know, she could have very well just dropped the baby off wherever and just kept moving, right? And that does happen. But in this specific case, she didn't. She wasn't able to fulfill any of her dreams. And then the only thing she really could hold on to was her love for the liturgy and for the word. And even that kind of failed her, in terms of the pastor. So, yeah. I thought it might have been too because he was very young, but just step up. Like, you knew how to use your dick. You might as well use, like.
Marta, who you saying should have stepped up?
The dad.
Okay.
Yeah, no, not the mom. I think the mom did as best as she could,
Yeah.
But the dad, like,
Yeah.
he was young, but even if we're talking about religion, I'm sure there is somewhere in the word that speaks to your responsibilities. So he very clearly chose to step away from his responsibilities and then kind of finagled it so that it was like, oh, it's almost like he even put all of it onto her. It was her fault. It was her fault that he couldn't make it as a man because he was a piss poor excuse of a man.
You know, that's really interesting you say that because Kimberly also just said there's this idea of responsibilities, right? And who has them and who steps up to them and who runs away from them. And I thought the uncle definitely stepped up to his responsibilities when he put that ass whooping on
And the auntie.
And the auntie when they beat him up for fighting the mom.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Even his own parents and his own family didn't encourage him to be a father, to step up. And he says it in the book too. And part of me was like, they shouldn't have to because you're a man. But at the same time, it's like, that's what he comes from. So, that's why he's like that. Like they said, a man's issues with his wife is their business. So they didn't even felt like he deserved his ass beat for what he did to her. So that's just his upbringing.
Yeah. But this is probably more stereotype than not. But at least I often think of African families as, I think you just referred to this, just kind of like letting the family take care of their own business. But the minute the brother, her brother, the wife, the mother who dies, when her brother hears about this, he goes and beats the crap out of the ex-husband. Like he's not letting any time sort of go by. He's dealing with it right away, and I'm sure this is a stereotype, but I often think of African families as having this kind of like close-knit, insular structure that, if that's your wife and you leave her, that's up to you, But the way this is presented is like, yeah, that's your wife, but that's also my sister, and I'm gonna beat the shit out of you for acting a fool. Again, this is a stereotype, but they feel very American, and it is possible, America is quite intoxicating, and you don't have to be here that long before you start down the American path, so to
Yeah,
speak.
that was so brilliantly said.
That wasn't brilliant.
You said America is intoxicating.
Oh, I've always felt that. Like, it is hard to not buy into this system that is based on money and acquiring things, and they're selling us this idea that you can go to school and you can be a part of this system, or you can buy a house any way you want to and you can be part of, and it's just not the case. You know, like there's a fine line between drinking just enough and drinking too much. And most people drink way too much and they lose sight of, you know, what it is just to kind of exist in this country.
I'm listening to y'all talk and piggybacking up on what Ron just said. I'm just thinking about what does it mean to follow suit in a very rigid way with like gender norms, right? And like you being the wife and what that entails about being domesticated and what that means to be a mother, like not having blurred lines. It makes me think about The Girl in the Mirror, when the stories of the woman, I can't remember which person it was, but she went to the attic and she found herself and her dreams like stowed away, and she just sat there. Are you remembering this part? I don't know.
I think it was like the second generation.
Was it like Natasha's mom or something like that?
I think
after the husband left.
Yeah.
And she was like, I want to rediscover myself. She goes up to the attic and then she finds like her old sewing garments and things like that. And she just finds all of the dreams that she allowed to like fall by the wayside because she took on this role as wife, mother, and so forth. So it's just like, it's very interesting. You see like this pattern of loss of your own aspirations because you are fulfilling these larger societal norms, and the two can't mix.
But that's because there's no compromise. I feel like if there was some sort of compromise in relationships where those gender norms weren't so rigid, that everyone would be able to fulfill their dream, and there wouldn't be so much cloudiness, right? And that I would be able, and there are some families that are able to do that, where it's like, okay, I'm going to put my dream to the side for a spell. You're going to focus on what you're going to focus on. And then when you're done with that, now it's my turn and I'll be able to fulfill that dream. So I think it's also having like maybe a healthy relationship or a healthy idea of what, you know, gender norms are. I don't know, you know, like
Did y'all notice that there was an absent father in every story that we read? Like the story that we read this week, there was an absent father, right? Or am I bugging? Was there a father?
In the first story, the father was absent of the, I can't remember her name.
Proposed.
What's
in
that?
Proposed. In Proposed.
Right.
Yeah, Demetrius.
Right, and it's not.
And
it's
also
not,
in.
Go ahead.
No, I meant also in the speakers and headphones.
Right.
The father's also missing in that story as well.
I think both. It's not clear if the young woman who is abused what her parental structure is. I think her mother is her mother is arrested. But it wasn't clear to me. Maybe I'm not. Can't remember.
No, the mom was arrested.
Yeah.
In speakers and headphones.
Right.
The mother was arrested. Serene's mother was
Right.
arrested for beating her up.
Right. So, but there was no father even in that story either.
No.
And there was, father had died in pain, right?
Whose father?
The father of the woman getting married and the husband of the wife who
Oh yeah.
said, hey,
Yeah.
he had died.
Yeah.
There's a line in the story which I thought was very powerful. And it's towards the end of the first story. I have the digital copy, so I can't give you a page, but it's like
Is that proposed? Is that the first story you read?
the first story is
Lost Never Had.
Lost Never Had. Yes.
Okay.
So in the Kindle copy, it's like the second to last page, but I'm assuming it's probably like 3 pages before the end of that story, where she says she's typing in her new password, or she's typing in her password to see the new email that's coming from her dad. And she says, if only forgetting and deleting were the same thing. And I was like, can y'all, I don't know
That's
where
page,
it is.
it's page 110
110, yeah.
in the book.
Mm-hmm. And then she's like, you know, I could delete today, I could delete the email, but she's always essentially going to remember. And I thought that was so powerful, because sometimes you want to just like erase things from your head. You know, it's like, and this is just, what came to me there was like, you know, you're in a relationship, you break up with a guy, you delete his number, and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna block him, but you can't forget. And so sometimes those like feelings come up and you start to miss people and you want to call back, but you know, you wish that you could just like erase everything so that you never have to experience it. And I wish that she could like erase and delete that experience, because I feel like she was better off without knowing about her dad.
But on the other hand, she doesn't do that, and then she replies, and that's one of the most powerful things that happens, is she's like, you owe me money, bro. Not for all my life, but just for that meal that we mutually agreed to see each other for. And I don't know, I respectfully disagree. Like, if she never had that experience, she can't grow from it. And it sucks that you like live with the pain with that for the rest of your life, that total rejection from your father, both by his absence and then also meeting him and him being so horrible to you. But like, I don't know, I feel like it may be better to live with that loneliness and know what it feels like, and do something about it, and stand on your own 2 feet afterwards and confront him for what he did and move on, than to delete and never have it happen. Like, I'm sympathetic to like, no one should feel that pain. And many times in my life, I've felt like, yeah, I wish forgetting and deleting were the same thing, so that I could erase the entire pain. But I feel like you can't. And so there's something really great about when you can use that and like regain a sense of your own self.
The auntie wanted her to know who he was. She was saying that to her husband. She needs to know who he is. She needs to know for herself who her father is. And by them going to dinner and then that email, then she knew who he was. She knew who he was. So, and the auntie said it's important. Remember when she was in the other room and then she was trying to act like she was humming, and the auntie and uncle were talking, and she starts talking, humming louder when the auntie says right, you know, when she's going to write. So but they wanted her to know who he was for herself.
Yeah.
I just want to pick back up with Camila.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I think it's very hard for most people who have been abandoned by a parent to totally wipe that clean, you know? Even if one parent is good, you know, to you, still, when a parent, you know, and this guy, he abandoned the mother because he didn't want the responsibility of the mother and the child, and so he just left right away, you know. And even though she may, you know, not be crippled by this, she don't have to be crippled by this, but it's something that's in there for a long time, and maybe till you die, really. That somebody who was the closest to you just left you, you know, like that. So.
I think that. Oops.
I was real quickly. I was just gonna say, yeah, to piggyback on what Camila was saying, like when you attempt to erase, you also attempt to erase those lessons, right? And those then become the barometer for you. Like, oh, this feels a little bit familiar. You know, your antennae start to go up and you're like, I remember, you know what I mean? And if you erase, you then can't remember, right? And so also, yes, he's a fuckboy. Again, I haven't read it. But some fuckboys actually do believe in actual penance and are coming from a community space and want to, and this is just anyone in general, want to fix, remedy, or whatever a situation, you know what I mean? Because erasure and deleting in that way is like cancel culture, you know what I'm saying? And I very much do not believe in cancel culture because it does not allow people the grace to evolve. A lot of our leaders, you know, we use Malcolm X, 22-year-old Malcolm X, you know, my fucking man, we were like, yeah. A couple years later, you know, you got streets named, years later, you have streets named after you, you know what I'm saying? If you delete and don't allow someone grace or the space to evolve, then why are we even here in the first place? You know what I'm saying?
But I think even she grew also. She was able to tell her father, you know, I know who you are. And she said to him in the email, don't hit your new wife. You know, right? You know, she said that to him and she was able to really like process through it and really just see, you know, him for what he is. And I think that this author keeps doing that. Like she keeps like every story, even like the, you know, the other parts, like she just makes characters like you have to talk about them or, so, you know, in some way or, you know, or she makes these characters so, like one character is either really, really good and one character is so bad. You know, that you just have to talk about them and just think things through. So I did like reading it. You know, like the father just had no redeeming qualities, which was kind of, I mean, I think we all do. You know, I don't know. If that makes sense.
I know what you're saying, Rachel, and I feel that same way with this author, especially with these 3 stories we just read. It was almost like there was a likable character and then there was a very clear unlikable character. And the unlikable character we just didn't know enough about to know if they had any redeeming qualities whatsoever. And I think that's kind of the idea. I was thinking about this a lot with these pages. I think that was kind of the idea. Let me know what y'all think of like the idea of meeting somebody at one of the worst times in their life, one of the times that they look like an ass, they are exhibiting behaviors that, you know, society 100% doesn't deem fair or nice or kind. Like we're meeting all of these people. For example, in the first story, we're meeting the father, you know, at his absolute worst, trying to juggle a new family and this new religion and commitment to a new recommitment to a religion, and you know, just stumbling and fumbling over what to do with this daughter he abandoned, right? That at one of the probably absolute worst times we could be meeting him, we're meeting him, right? And then the second story, you know, with the mom who like beats the friend. Not that we meet her, but we kind of like meet that story, right? At the worst part of Serene's life, you know, or one of the worst parts of her life, where she not only is getting beaten, but her best friend has kind of, you know, called her out and she's like literally in the streets with a bloody face and her mom is going to jail. You know what I'm saying? The third story, we're meeting the mom, like at one of the worst times in her life, you know, where she is done. She's bitter, she's sad, she's old. She's pissed off at love and just the idea of marriage. And she, to the point where she can't even like be happy for her daughter who's getting married. You know what I'm saying? We're meeting these people at the worst times in their lives. And I was wondering, like, how do y'all feel about that? Like, what is, like, I don't know. I was just wondering some thoughts on just that idea.
I think Camila asked this like how old the father was. You know, he just had the baby at 21. And I was like thinking about the same thing too. And then I even wondered, like, did he love her? Did he love the mother? I mean, of course they got together, but having a baby with someone is that's a big thing. That's major, you know, and that, you know, I don't know. I'm not saying he was trapped or he was, you know, but just to look at things in different, Like this makes it hard to look at anything a different way. It's just like he's a bad guy, you know, and and he probably is, and I think that he is. But I just think for just the discussion, it would have been nice to have a little more layers or something, you know.
I agree. I think that, you know, each one of us is more complex than, you know, than she put, you know, out. I mean, I enjoyed her reading, her writing and her reading, but I think that, you know, even the worst of us, you know, there are parts of us, it's, you know, that it's complex. I mean, what made us this way, and are we this way all the time, or are we this way with everybody? Are we this way at 20 and at 65? You know, so it's a little simplistic, you know, the characters. Yeah. And even the good people. I mean, you know, nobody, you know, is a saint or a saint all the time, you know, whatever. So.
Because I would have chased after him for the $49.50. Like I wouldn't have let him leave me. So I don't know.
And then Rachel, we would have been reading your story about somebody how you showed up at their house. You know, we would have been
and then done the door. Right.
Give me my $49 and the tip too. Interest.
I would have let it go and never spoke to him again. I would have done what she did. Just let it go and remember it. Never forget it. Keep it moving, but don't forget.
I don't know. I like how at the end when she said, don't beat your new wife. I feel like because he clearly has not changed and he's still the way he was, and he's attempting this, whatever this, I don't know what to call it. He probably will end up beating his wife later down the road. So I like that she said that. Like,
I'm just a little concerned for how it left her. Like, because towards the end, she finally says, like, all right, I shut my computer down. I turn the lights off. But then she says, I kneel down by the sofa and say a prayer. I say amen. I keep my eyes closed, waiting for my loneliness to leave me, waiting for my prayer to be answered. That's the part that got me. Keeping my conviction that it will. And remember, in the beginning of the story, she talks about how her mother was a very convictive woman. So that's why I felt like meeting him just did the same thing to her that it did to her mother. And so that's why, you know, for me, I was just like, I'd rather her not have. But I appreciate what Tasha was saying and what Camila was saying, that, you know, erasure means you basically don't get any chance to redeem yourself or to learn or to evolve. So, but you know, for me, I was just like, oh, this is that cycle. Like, is it a cycle now? Because you would hope that, I guess I'm wondering if her mother would hope that she would find someone in her life that wouldn't have done to her what her husband did to her. And now, instead of another man doing it to her, it's her own father that leaves that with her. And so when she said that, when she was like, keeping my conviction that it will, it made me it just reminded me of her mother. And that her mother's story, well, we don't really know it much, but it seemed very short, and it seemed lonely. It didn't seem, you know, I mean, she had God in her life, but even then, towards the end, that kind of even failed her, or her belief that God was in the presence of the pastor, right? Or that the pastor was like a direct line to God. So I don't know. Yeah, that's why.
Yeah, no, I really, thanks for sharing that, because I think it reminded me of this, like the idea of learning behaviors through other people, not necessarily because they taught them to you, but because you are behaving by kind of acting out what they are, right? Or not acting out what they are in this sense. In this sense, we learned that, or in this sense, the character learned, you know, maybe it's not such a great idea to follow a pastor, to follow a man, right? A man of God. Maybe it's, you know, best idea to find that idea of religion within yourself, because she didn't stop praying. It didn't sour her, even though both these men were pimping prophets, you know what I'm saying? Pimping Jesus. Even though both the men, you know, and kind of father figures, if you will, in her life were doing that, she still at the end of the story was praying. So that, I think that the kind of ideas like learning through other people what you have to learn through them, right? Kind of life teaching, life type of thing. I felt like I've seen that in almost in all of the stories. Maybe that's why in the second story, what was the girl's name in the second story in Speakers and Headphones, the main character?
I don't know.
It was June. June and
June, yeah. Maybe that's why June never really found another friend, right? Because she learned about herself that maybe she wasn't good at keeping other people's secrets, and that's a big part of being a friend. Or maybe she learned that if she can't save someone, that she doesn't even want to get involved because she doesn't want to be hurt again. So she's just going to keep it so far away that it won't harm her again. All of these lessons like were just kind of life lessons to me that could only be learned through other people.
Well, she says that before she moved from Brooklyn into the Bronx, she never had friends in school. And I guess that Serene was her very, you know, good friend, her first and only friend.
But you know, she may have felt guilty, and then she felt sad because Serene, you know, told her she didn't want to be friends again. But she did a friendly thing. I mean, she protected that child from her mother. That hurts, of course, you know. But the mother could have killed her, or the mother's beating her up all the time, and you know, the mother had problems, you know, we know that, but still she saw it as something like she was saving Serene. She was helping her, and she is a child. She couldn't go in there and, you know, drag the mother away. So the only thing she could do was, that she knew of, was to call the police. Yeah.
She did the right thing.
Right, but we're adults looking at it. But if you're a 13-year-old, or what's seventh grade? Seventh grade is what, 12? If you're 12 years old, you're like, my friend betrayed my trust. Because I didn't want her to come to my house. I didn't want her to come here. Not only did she lie to me and say that she had something to do, but she followed me home somewhere where I didn't even want you to know. I didn't want you to know that I lived here. So, you know, as a 12-year-old, you don't really think that your friend is doing the best thing. You think that she just betrayed you. She just lied to you. As adults, we're like, you know, thank God, because we don't know where that would have left her. But yeah, and we never find out. We don't know. For a second, I thought that Regine's story, Serene, and then it was like Regina. I thought that the first girl she meets, I thought that was Serene. And it wasn't. When I almost was transported and felt like it was her story, and I almost wanted it to be. I wanted her to win, because we get a sense that her friend Serene is very smart, very intelligent, but that her circumstances won't allow her to grow. So yeah, I don't know.
So it's this idea, right, of when your best isn't good enough, or when your best. Right, you know, because she was trying her best, I believe, and just like acting quickly and like calling the cops and trying to help her friend. I believe she was acting quickly. I believe she was doing her best, but it's the idea, right, of like when your best is not good enough, when your best is not, or maybe not even needed. I was thinking about that a lot.
But I think Serene's mother was a bully, and people out there knew, because when the two boys follow June, and they come across in the store.
Yeah.
And, you know, Serene says, you know, like, beat it, and the boys just leave. And then June says something, and she says, well, they know my mother.
Yeah. How about that?
They know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Did Serene also, she could have been upset at the fact that she lost her safe haven at June's house. I mean, things she didn't want June to tell, and yeah, all of that, but also she had found a place that she could go and be safe for those few hours a day. And
Yes.
by June trying to help her, she not only, you know, embarrassed her and outed her, but she took away maybe the only safe surrounding that she had, that she could find.
Yeah.
And she could have went back because there was the, yes, mommy. She could have went back. There was the point where she was like, oh, go ahead, go do pee-pee, go ahead. That she felt like, oh, it was gonna come back to how it was, but then it didn't. It didn't. When she went to the and knocked on the door, on the red door, I thought it was, I don't know why they kept describing the door. They kept talking about that the door was red, the red door with the scratches. And I was like, why do they keep describing this door? But yeah, so when she goes,
to me, I think that they made it red because you see something red and you automatically pause, even if it's a familiar thing. Something red like that, especially if you're a kid and you're looking at this, it's like, wow, it's red. Maybe I'm just, you know.
Well, it's a warning, right? Red is usually a warning. Yeah, I was kind of thinking like a little deeper than that. I don't know why, but when I realized, I kind of had the same thoughts as Marta, and I was thinking like maybe she was like, every time, think of if you're Serene, you know, every time you walk through that door, you're walking through hell, you know, like a fiery red emergency, chaotic situation that you're just trying to get out of. No idea, no means how. What I didn't understand was why the speaker phones were so, they didn't really come back around for me.
Maybe she was trying to hide what she was feeling, you know. It talks about Billie Holiday and that particular song.
Weird.
Yeah, it probably took her into another world, you know, just by listening to the music, I think.
Any 12-year-olds listening to Billie Holiday? Strange fruit.
You're trying to get out of a bad situation. Billie Holiday's music is not gonna do it. It's so sad, you know. Like,
but Billie Holiday's voice is so, it transmits pain sometimes, and so maybe it related in that sense. But I wonder where she learned that. You had to have heard it somewhere. Yeah. So maybe she heard it at home. Maybe her mother plays it often. I don't know. You know, like that's what I don't like about short stories, that you don't get everything, but it gives you the chance to kind of dig deeper and kind of figure something out on your own. But yeah, she had to have learned it from somewhere, because how does a 12-year-old get introduced to Billie Holiday, right? Yeah. But I like that they used Billie, because then I could feel that pain. Like as soon as I knew that it was Billie, and then that it was Willow Weep for me. You know, I'm like, okay, now I want to look at the lyrics, and I want to hear, what in the lyrics tells me what that child was going through during that time.
I just want to say, I was 15, this is Jacqueline, and I knew Billie's entire songbook.
But where did you learn that from, Jacqueline? Is it like, you just picked that up on your own, or?
I did it on my own, and I think it came out of the loss of my father. And I listened to her music while I grieved. But I remember that between 15 and 17, I knew her entire songbook. So maybe these things come out of events. or maybe they're transmitted from one generation to the other. Who knows? I'll leave it like that.
Yeah, and Marta, she said when she looked like she would have erupted in shouts if I wasn't there when she was listening to that song, Willow Weep for Me. Like she just wanted to scream.
I thought it was so thoughtful when she had no words. Serene had no words. She was like, for some reason, that day she didn't talk much. And, oh, it was the day that she got hit, I guess, or she must have had an episode with her mom. And then her friend, June, then sings the song for her. I thought that was very thoughtful of her. I just put the lyrics up just in case anyone wants to see them too.
It's also interesting that June is the chatty one until she realizes what's going on in Serene's life. And then suddenly June stops speaking so much. And I think she stopped speaking as a, I'm assuming, as a way to kind of pull out conversation from other people, because June was really like chatting, you know, any conversation she was in, she was like leading the conversation. Then suddenly she stops. And I mean, she stops once she realizes that maybe her friend was trying to speak all this time and tell June, Serene was trying to speak all this time and tell June of her pain that she was going through. But June was so busy sort of maximizing the conversation, Serene never had a chance to. This is June thinking in her head, you know.
Yeah, I can agree with that. But I also think, like, even with her relationship with Regina, she ends the piece with, oh, I should tell her my advice, you know, I should tell her my thoughts on which college she should go to or whatever. And tell her to, you know, it was good advice, you know, pick the school where you'll go debt free. You are the prestige. You don't need that stamp, right? But I feel like that loss of her friendship with Serene, the loss that, you know, she kind of, in a sense, brought upon herself when she called the police on her, I think, or on her mother. I think that wound was so deep, it just stopped her from giving advice at all, you know? Not only stopped her from talking, just so other people could, you know, maybe she could hear something, but also stopped her from even giving good advice. That's dangerous. That's really dangerous to lose that sense of security.
So early.
Confidence in yourself.
Yeah. But I mean, have you guys ever experienced that? Like, you give kind of like unsolicited advice and you don't get the best reaction. And then just like we were talking about earlier, you kind of use that as a barometer now. You're like, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't say anything unless someone asks me. And then even when someone asks you, sometimes people don't want to hear it. I know from my personal experience, I can be very abrasive sometimes. So I just like, don't say nothing. And even when you ask me, I'm like, girl, what you think? And I kind of just mirror what you want me to hear, what you want me to say, as opposed to sometimes what I'm really, really thinking. And that's only like with really close relationships, because I'm very aware that what I say may kind of break something in the relationship. I don't know.
And maybe June felt that with all the rest of her relationships after that one with Serene.
I think she felt maybe her reaction was too extreme. Like maybe she had regrets about calling the police on, you know, her mother, and like it was the right thing to do, but it was just, you know, to sneak behind her back and wait outside, and you know, maybe she's weighing like, was that the best thing, you know, to do? Could I have done it a different way? You know, because it did, you know, mostly end their friendship. and we don't really know why. Like, obviously, you know, I don't, like, you don't know what happened to her after that. And, you know, maybe that's her, you know, she doesn't want to give advice anymore because maybe she knows it's like too much.
Yeah.
Or she's too much.
Yeah, there were some heavy consequences to her actions. But even though they were correct, I mean, you know, okay, so this is a young teenager. And so she doesn't have a lot of insight into what's going on because she's a teenager, you know. So, but she did, I think she did the only thing that she knew what to do. I mean, you know, is to try to protect her friend, you know. And it was the friend, you know, didn't appreciate, maybe she did inwardly appreciate it, I don't know, but outwardly she didn't appreciate it and she didn't want, you know, to have anything else to do with her. But she did stop that beating, you know, really.
Yeah. Do you guys think there was a sense of entitlement for that girl? Because there was a part where she was like, oh, yeah, my mother loves me so much. You know, like she was kind of bratty about going to a private school. You know, like.
I thought she was being sarcastic.
Yeah, she's like, yeah, she was being sarcastic, but she was also like, I didn't get how bratty she was being. From like the older self, because she was still very young. They were like in their 20s, I'm sure, when they were meeting in the city. She seems very introspective, right? Or does that make is that, if that's a word? Y'all will tell me that the words that don't make sense.
We're not going to tell you anything.
Listen, y'all just throw the words out. Y'all just be like, that's not the word. Don't have me out here talking about fox fur, okay? Tell me. But then I was surprised to hear that as a teenager, she was like that. She was like, yeah, you know, my mother, oh yeah, she's gonna miss me. Yeah, she just want to bring some man up in here. When her mother was probably just trying to get a sense of self again by being able to get them hours in so she could make partner or do something to that effect in her firm. But also in the same, on that same line, also get her daughter into a really great school and give her daughter a better opportunity. So yeah, I don't know. I just felt like she was a little entitled maybe too.
I think that's why she's the way she is now too, because she feels so guilty about that. Looking back at how she probably in ways took her life for granted in their relationship. Like, even it reminded me of when I read Becoming by Michelle Obama, and she was talking about how when she would come home from school, like her mom would make her sandwiches and ask her about her day and things like that. And she said, as a kid, like, you don't really think about how your parents' day was when you come home, or what they're going through. Like, you are very selfish as a kid. And that made me think back, and I'm like, wow, I really didn't. You know, like, I would get annoyed at certain things, but I was always looking at things from my point of view. So now that she's older and she's realizing, I guess, how she was, she probably just feels really guilty and is holding that against herself. Because if she lets that go, she would have meaningful relationships. She would allow herself to have friends. I think that friend values her as much as she's so, like, she intentionally withholds so much. And that friend clearly, like, values her as a real friend. So it's like she's really holding on to that, and it's hurting her. That girl needs therapy now. Like, that messed her up.
The teenagers are like that, or even younger than teenagers. I mean, most are very self-centered, and most don't think about their parents. Or if they do think about their parents, they say, ooh, you know, it's like, yeah, if their parents are expressing their humanity, then, you know, the kids don't really accept it, you know. But then hopefully, you know, the teenager grows out of that, matures out of that. But a lot of teenagers, they don't know. and that maybe that's just part of growing up, part of life.
She probably felt like she talked so much, and her words, her entitlements, and her selfishness in ways hurt her friend, because she's probably looking back at it like, damn, I'm talking about my mother like this, and her mother probably didn't even care what school I go to, or she doesn't care about me, or blah, blah, blah. And now she's just like, I'm just not gonna speak because look what happened.
But I think that June was acting up because Serene was the only friend she had.
Exactly.
And now all of a sudden her mother wants to send her away to a boarding school. So therefore, she's kind of getting upset because why is she trying to get rid of me?
But think about why she didn't have any friends. All she did was talk about herself.
Right.
Her friend, she'd never asked her friend any questions. And and then when you finally find out one thing about her, you have this drastic reaction of calling the police. Like there was like so many other steps that could have happened before that. And she just, your friends listen to Billie Holiday at 12 and you don't say like, what, like what's going on? You good? She never, so.
If she's 12 years old, I don't think that's a question that would have come to her, And then what other things could she have done? I mean, I guess she could have told her mother, maybe.
That's what I was thinking, right? She could have told her mom, and maybe her mother could have done something, I don't know.
Yeah.
Or a teacher or something, I don't know.
But her friend was beat really bad, so I think part of me is like, she needed to have to call the cops when it happened, because.
But how come nobody else noticed? Like the school didn't notice.
Of course she had the bruise around her neck, but now like her eye, she was bleeding. Like it was different. Yeah. It wasn't as severe.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
We have 2 minutes left, and I just want to say before anybody has any closing thoughts, that next week we are starting the second part of this book, the linked blue part. 141 to I think 140, 195, Ron?
141 to 194. It's in the chat.
Okay.
Also.
Yeah, 145 to 194.
Yeah. The book is split into 2 parts. So we just finished Lock Gray, and next is Link Blue. But there's supposed to be I thought there was supposed to be a reference as to why the first set of stories were called Locked Gray, but I couldn't find any like theme throughout each story that would make sense of why Locked Gray.
Yeah, I had that question too. I don't understand the title.
Yeah,
So I don't know.
I think for me, the Locked Gray, and I haven't read the linked blue part yet, but the Locked Gray to me seems like each story kind of has like undefeatable like sadness, like locked grayness in the sense of I don't know, just void of color, void of love, void of like vibrancy. Thinking like you kind of have that like in the characters' lives, kind of like locked in. It's like kind of really no escaping it. I don't know. That's the only thing I could think of.
I was wondering if the gray also may mean that it was kind of a gray matter, or everything was blurred with this first set of stories in some way. Yeah. Just to piggyback off what you were saying, I had contacted Ron earlier, like the title of this book is very intriguing to me. So maybe we have to finish the book to get a better idea of the significance of the title. But I I love the stories. I really do. And I'm so glad that this book club introduced me to this author, because